WCLN 1170 Radio and Cable Channel 16 are pleased to present We Should Know, hosted by JW Simmons, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative as we consider closely what we should know.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thanks for being with us today. We Should Know is on there. I want to inform you today that we're into our, celebration, if you want to call it that. It's the 10th year of operation for We Should Know. We've been coming to you from WCLN Radio, Star Communications TV. Also, there's a summation in the Sampson Weekly newspaper for 10 years. It's interesting how time goes by. We want to thank you for being with us and continuing to support us, and especially all of our sponsors out there for your support over the past 10 years. And we look forward to continuing to bring you information and education that hopefully helps you in your daily lives and what you're doing. I'm very pleased today to have a guest with us that I've talked to a couple of times off air and met a while back. A lot of people know the name. If you don't, you probably have seen it in a magazine or newspaper somewhere. He's the Farmer of the Year. His name is James L. Lamb, and his nickname is Cookie. James, thank you for being with us today. I want to talk about as much as I can. Your history is, we got so much history here, believe it or not, being a young man like you are, but you got a lot of history. I want to try to cover as much as I can, but let me first of all kind of cue folks in just a little bit about you. And one of those things that interests me is that locally here, you're on the Sampson County Soil and Water Conservation Supervisor, Sampson County Cooperative Extension Advisory Board, Sampson County Schools Curriculum Advisory. On the state level, you currently serve as Agriculture Commissioner's Circle. You're a member of the Cape Fear Farm Credit Nominating Committee, a member of the Eastern North Carolina Technical Assistance Group, a member of the North Carolina Pork Council Promotions Committee. On the national level, I just keep going here, so folks are going to have to bear with me. James is past president of the National Pork Board's Nominating, Environment and Domestic Marketing Committees, and is a current member of the National Pork Producers Council Environmental Committee. James, you are employed, or work with, should I say, Prestige Farms as an environmental specialist. Your background is extremely interesting in that you are a true product of the soil of Sampson County. You grew up here, your family is here, you live just south of Clinton, got a farm there, and you have a nursery operation. Let's start anywhere you want to, but let's look at your determination to get your degree at North Carolina State University, graduating in 1994. 96. So when you look at that, give us a picture of what you would say would be the kind of, not only the seed where you were planted, but the environment that helped you to move where you are now, recognized both on the state level and nationally, because your name is out there. You travel internationally, promoting the pork industry in the area. Tell us about your life. I want people to feel that from you.
Well, growing up in southern Sampson County on a farm, I always had this genuine love for farming, the land, the planting, and of course animals, which is kind of why I'm primarily in the swine business. I had a fascination, like a lot of young kids have, with tractors and trucks, and I would follow my dad day to day, and I would look at him, and he was my hero, I guess, growing up. And each new thing I learned on the farm was like a big deal to me. When my dad first let me take the steering wheel of a piece of equipment or something, I'd go home, I'd say, "Mom, I got to drive the tractor," or Dad let me tote the pigs or something, or feed up. And then little did I know, as you get older, then those chores kind of become, you're thinking, oh man, I got to go feed the cows, or I got to feed the hogs. But when I was a child, I remember I wanted to chop real bad. Most people don't. You're thinking, why do you want to chop? But In tobacco, they were worried that I would chop the tobacco because I couldn't tell the tobacco from a weed.
You probably have to explain to some people out there what chopping is. They have no idea.
It's taking a hoe and chopping grass and weeds out of the crop that you want to grow. So they would put me in the fifth middle, which I didn't know what, or they call a truck middle, because the only thing that was there was grass. And they got me a little hoe, and then they let me play in that spot and chop anything I wanted, and as long as I stayed there. But little things like that growing up, that was big to me once I got older, to do things. You know, when you got where you could turn the tobacco harvester around without your dad getting up there to turn around for you, you know, you felt like you accomplished something, driving a stick shift and things like that. So after I graduated high school, you know, you're obviously thinking of engineering or being a doctor's, lawyers, things that you can make more lucrative. And I still had the love for farming, so I obviously wanted to get an education and figure out some way that I could do what I love and hopefully be lucrative. And NC State had a great agricultural and engineering program, so I was thinking if I went to NC State and decided to do engineering or agriculture, it would be all those curriculums were right there on that university. So that's what I did, and luckily I was fortunate to graduate in '96. And when I graduated from '96, the swine industry was booming, and job availability in my curriculum, which was ag and environmental technology, was plentiful. I had job offers from John Deere and Case IH. My father, he had passed away when I was 16, so my mom was home by herself. I was the youngest of 6, so I was the last to leave the nest. And I was thinking about, as she got older, I kind of wanted to come home back to Sampson County so I could be with her, since I was the last to leave the nest. And also, as I got older and started reflecting on life and what you value, I was thinking that what better place to start a family than back home in Sampson County. You'd have that extended family with my mother there and my wife, who's also from Sampson County. So we would have 2 sets of grandparents, you know, around to raise kids, and which is things like this pandemic are very critical when you see you have a household with 2 essential workers and your school's shut down. It's nice to have grandma down the road, you know. So all those things played in the factor, and I enjoyed my childhood here in Sampson County. So I was fortunate to get a job opportunity at Precious Farms, which is 5 minutes from my house, and it's also in southern part of Sampson County.
Now, you interned with Prestige, I believe, didn't you?
Yes, sir. I interned with Prestige in 1994. I was recruited by Deborah Johnson at the time, and she was heading the intern program. I was actually the first intern class, was the summer of 1994. There was 4 of us that interned with Precious Farms that year, and another Sampson County kid is Nelson Powell, who later on became a manager at Cape Fear Farm Credit, and now he works with Rabo. But I think the engineering program, all 4 of us did pretty good, I guess, as we grew up. But 2 years later, then I took on a full-time position at Precious Farms, and I've been there ever since. What's that, 23 years?
And only 25 years old, so I mean, you've done. We were talking before we came on air, and we were talking about how age catches us fast and so forth, and the reality is your trajectory in life has seemed to have moved you through places that you've enjoyed being, you've had a passion for. You know, we talked about the idea that you were looking forward to getting back here and getting back on the farm. How you enjoyed, just a while ago you mentioned how you enjoyed chopping, and a lot of people probably that listen to the show, hopefully a lot of them will, but some people might not know what that was. But that was part of not only your environment, but my environment, a lot of our listeners' environment. They understood that, and some people kind of gave pushback on it and didn't like it, but you actually enjoyed doing those kinds of things.
I enjoyed chopping at 3 or 4 years old, but today I don't particularly enjoy
Yeah, you like chemicals to take care of some of that stuff for you.
Yeah, but when I was a toddler, I was the type that was kind of in the way, and I always asked questions. How did this work? Why are you doing it this way? And things like that. But fortunate for me, my dad was willing to teach me, and he didn't have. He didn't look like I got on his nerves, so he'd actually take time for most days. Now, every now and then you catch him on a bad mood and he didn't want to be bothered, but his patience was probably better than mine, so he was able to teach me and answer a lot of the questions I had growing up. And as he got older, of course, he had arthritis, so in hindsight, it worked out that when his health started failing, that I already knew how to run and maintain the working aspect of the farm. And
your father had a military background too, right?
Yes, sir. He was. He kind of came back to the family farm. He was in the Army, and his father's health started failing, so he foregone his Army career to come back to help his father on the farm, Mr. Jimmy Lamb. And so in essence, he grew up on the farm, and he also worked part-time in the off-season in the wintertime here in commercial printing, which was down the street from here. So that's what he did in the winters when farming was kind of slowed down. And my mother, she retired from Black & Decker, which is made power tools in Fayetteville. So she retired in the early 90s when I was in college. So.
Okay, we're gonna go to our first break, and we'll back. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for being with us. We're first break. We're talking with James Cookie Lamb, Farmer of the Year. So proud of the guy from Sampson County, and we'll be back in a moment to hear more of his story.
Experiencing slow internet? If you have a fast internet package, the problem is most likely your wireless router. With more devices using Wi-Fi, your wireless router may not be able to deliver the speed and coverage you need. We now have the leading solution to enhance your internet experience. Using small devices in a mesh network, these Wi-Fi appliances cover just about any size home so that all your devices can operate to their fullest potential. Whole home Wi-Fi from Star Communications. Get the most out of your internet connection.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you for being with us. We Should Know is on there. My name is JW Simmons. This airs. We're going through our 10th year this month. August 2020 is 10 years on the radio, WCLN radio, also with Star Communications, Channel 16 TV. We've been coming to you for quite some time, just reflecting about that just this week and thinking about that anniversary moment. We appreciate all of you for listening and for watching this show each week. We continue to try to bring you education and information that will be beneficial to you in some way, if nothing else, just information that may help you to rethink some things or even look at the path you're on now and see where you're going. One of those people that's a good person to look at when you think about paths is James Lamb. James is the North Carolina Farmer of the Year. And James, you've got so many different things that I want to make sure I'll cover. I want to mention the fact that you were also outstanding pork producer in 2016 here in North Carolina. And there's so many little things that you've been involved in that I think would interest people to kind of understand your journey and where you went, but dealing with marketing efforts for the Pork Council, the National Pork Producer Council, in the swine industry. You've appeared in many different posts in magazines and as an industry-sponsored television commercials. And not long ago, you were chosen to be the voice of agriculture in a conversation with President Trump at the White House. Now, a lot of people probably don't know that, but to me, that's a big deal, and I just want to kind of get that out there. You pretty much sat down and had a conversation with the most considered to be by many the most powerful person in the world. So, as representative of that, and as moving forward, a lot of that background was solidified right here in Sampson County, working with Prestige Farms and your family. that's where it comes back to. Do you have a feel that that's been beneficial to your roots as you've grown this big oak tree, so to speak?
Definitely, Mr. Sessoms. I would give primarily credit for that, my invitation to the White House, to Ray Starling, who's also a native Sampson County kid. He's a graduate of Midway High School, and I'm a graduate of Union High School, which we've seen our differences on the playing field. but as we got older, we became my best friends. Some of them are from Midway, and vice versa. But that was a huge honor to be able to go to the White House. In fact, Don Butler, who was at the time worked for Smithfield, and Deborah Johnson contacted me, and I was at the farm that afternoon, and said, "You're going to get a call from the White House," because they kind of felt that if I just got a call from the White House in today's environment with telemarketers and everything, and people playing practical jokes, I wouldn't have answered the phone, or would have just said, "Sure, right," and just hung up the phone. But we didn't go in there to the White House. At first, we didn't really know the extent of our meeting, if the president's schedule changes so fast, so you don't know if it's 5 minutes or an hour. Fortunately, we got to spend an hour with the president, and
an entire hour.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
And the day before, since we didn't know how much time we were going to have, there was 15 farmers selected across the country, different commodity backgrounds, from cattle, timber. I was swine, and we each had talking points. I was tasked with talking to them about trade. And it turned out that his schedule worked out where we had a full entire hour, so we were able to each go and talk about each one of our talking points. And I think I was trying to think of a good opening line to when I introduced myself, and I told him, "I'm James Lamb. I'm from Clinton, North Carolina, but don't hold that against me," because he just had a vigorous bout with a candidate by the last name Clinton.
Oh, yeah, that's right, exactly.
And that he seemed to like that, and that was
he liked that intro.
Yeah, it was a good icebreaker, and I was able to talk to him about trade, and also as a added bonus, Vice President Pence happened to be in town. He had a prior engagement that was canceled, so he was able to be in the room too. So I was there with the president and the vice president for an hour.
Well, you've got to give us your kind of, I guess, insight. You know, we see people, especially on media platforms, we only see that person in a very small context. When you sit down and actually have a conversation with somebody, you get a sense of what that person is, more about it than just looking at it on the screen. Give us your true sense of what you felt from this president, this vice president. What are some of the things that you brought back in your mind?
Well, my first take was he's extremely down to earth. At the time, it was April of 2017, so he's only been in office maybe 3-4 months. And you know, the media had already portrayed him as in one light, but one is tradition for when the president enters the room, everybody stands, and he didn't seem like. And I've heard, you probably heard of people say that sometimes the president's supposed to walk in the door first, and kind of in their culture, sometimes if you let a woman walk in the door first. So there's things like that I saw on the personal level that, at the time at least, he didn't seem to let the presidency go to his head. He seemed like a really down-to-earth person. And I was really impressed with the background knowledge he had on agriculture. To my knowledge, we were the only group, particularly of our size, that ever been invited to the White House that represented agriculture. The other incidents was 5 farmers during the Reagan administration were invited to the White House. And that was shocking to me, since agriculture is such a vital part of our nation's economy, particularly if you consider that every product that is not 100% synthetic has farmer has some aspect of getting the raw materials together. For example, the farmer from Florida I met, they're in the beef and timber business, and she told me that there's use pine to make iPhone screens. So I didn't know that there was a component of your iPhone screen made out of pine.
Wow.
But so even I learned different things about agriculture, and for him to already have a background knowledge of agriculture, and he was seemed like he was willing to listen to the media painted this picture of him kind of being arrogant and knowing everything, but he was legitimately concerned and asked us what do we need, issues that were concerning us, and our main issues are obviously trade, labor, natural resources, things, green energy, all those things, profitability, the major concerns of agriculture. And it makes you feel good that somebody actually wants to listen to see what your concerns are.
Yeah, and I really like the fact that you were willing to give us a feel for that. I had a conversation with Wellie Jackson, one of your associate farmers here in the county. You probably know Wellie, and he had a similar kind of experience when he went up there. Of course, he went up there to take some turkeys. So
yeah.
You remember that, and he had a similar experience. So I guess, to get back to your story and where we are in this journey, oftentimes you have to really get beyond where you are to really see the true person. You can't just look at a picture or hear somebody else. And it's interesting that we now have gotten a very similar kind of response from two people that's actually sat down and had a conversation with the President of the United States.
Yeah, because at the beginning of the meeting, obviously all the media was in there, and the hot topic that week was the border wall. He ran on building a border wall, and 3 to 4 months into his administration, they kept asking about the border wall. So he introduced to the media the reason why we were there was to talk about agriculture and trade and the benefits of agriculture to the country and its economy. And he had 5 or 6 straight questions about the border wall, and to each he responded, today we're talking about agriculture, we're not talking about the border wall. He was also, today he was going to introduce a bill to increase high-speed internet to rural areas, which Sampson County is classified as rural. And so then he gets frustrated and he tells the media to, that's it, you can leave the room. And then I was thinking, since I had opportunities to be in front of the camera and also go and see how articles or interviews I've done with numerous outlets turn out, as I saw the behind the scenes also, that afternoon on the national news, the only thing you'll see is the end where he's a little bit agitated. But you don't. The backstory is he was asked the same question 5 times, and on the topic that was in no way related to what we were doing business that day. So, fortunately for me, I've seen both. I've done interviews with. You have friendly media and unfriendly media. Some media's outlets, the reporter already has the idea of what the way they want to shape a story, and they just want to get sound bites here and there to formulate the story. And I've done interviews for 2 hours, and they only use a 5-second, bit of it to help formulate.
Well, and one of the things as we go to break, I want to say is, and that's one of the reasons we do this show, is if we got 50 minutes, and your story is far more than just a sound bite. And so we're going to try to dig as deep as we can. And we'll be back in a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back. We're talking with James Lamb. We're talking about his journey. We're talking about where he's been. He's a North Carolina Farmer of the Year.
You come out to replace a bad sensor, and that adds a 5-year commitment to my contract, and you don't tell me? Here's your sign.
Switch to the sign that's keeping homes secure and customers happy all over the area. Security from Star Communications. We pride ourselves on fair pricing and quick, friendly service every time.
Somebody trying to break into this place?
Security from Star Communications.
Thank you for being with us today. The name of the show is We Should Know. I'm JW Simmons. It's a pleasure to have you with us today, particularly for two reasons. We keep mentioning this. I'll probably mention it throughout this month. It's our 10th anniversary for We Should Know. Coming to you on Star Communications, Channel 16, WCLN Radio, summation in the Sampson Weekly newspaper. We're talking with an individual today that his story is just fascinating to me, partially because I traveled the ag road back during the day. We were talking before we came on the air with a 140 farm-all tractor. James Lamb has seen some of those same roads. James, I want to thank you for being with us. As we start on this segment, I want to read a quote from Jessica Tripp, District Field Representative for North Carolina Farm Bureau Federation. And one of her quotes is, and this is about you, she added that you, James Lamb, is a nationwide advocate for agriculture, a leader and a gifted spokesperson for North Carolina's hogs industry. And she also says, you are a leader, you're an educator who knows informing the public about where food comes from and introducing them to the new trends and innovation in today's agriculture. Farming for you, James, she says, is not a job, it's a way of life, a heritage, and a calling. That's pretty strong. Did she read you right?
Yes, sir. I think she did. For my years in the ag industry and being able to work in various aspects of particularly swine, like the domestic marketing committee and things of that nature, I had the advantage of actually going to street level interviews in New York and Manhattan, and you could actually ask people, on the street, when you think of a farmer, what do you envision? And the idea of a farmer, for most people, since they're 3 or 4 generations now removed from the farm, is only what they saw on TV, some Green Acres or something like that from way back in the day. If
remember that show well, yeah.
Yeah, and one thing we learned as an industry and in agriculture is consumers are more concerned with not only how their food is produced, but and where it's raised and the background of the people that raise it. And there was they done some studies and that consumers trust farmers, they don't trust corporations. So not only swine, but all agriculture has a push since the 2000s to help get a phase 2 agriculture. And back in 2008 is when I got more involved in trying to get out and tell my story. And through the swine industry, they afforded me the opportunities to travel around the country and to a couple other countries like Mexico and Brazil, telling the story. And I've had the opportunity to be in some marketing videos for well-raised, well-traveled on YouTube. That's I'm on the North Carolina version and the South Korea version of that video to help get people like myself more involved in telling our story. And for me, it's an eye-opening experience because I got to leave Sampson County and see different cultures, and it's fascinating to see how people can look at the same picture and come up with different. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words. It's interesting to see what those 1,000 words are, and in some instances, it's almost like people have never seen a farmer that they know of in person. So that's always great. And like I said, I got to go to the American Medical Association when the pork industry got the check for healthy healthy food. Pork tenderloin won that. So the American Medical Association is all minority doctors, and it was in Louisiana, and I got their convention was 2 days, so I was in a big convention hall, and I had the booth, and it was the booth was called Meet a Farmer, Meet James Lamb, and it was interesting how many doctors from all over the country, came to my booth, and when I was walking out, people would, say, "Hey, Cookie," because I still go by my nickname. Yeah. And so that was fascinating. So I really appreciate the opportunities I had in the industry to be able to go see things like that, because I didn't even know that that organization existed until that point.
Do we make a mistake not promoting more what you've been doing, which is traveling nationally, internationally? Do we need to be promoting more what ag is and promoting it in a more aggressive way? Because oftentimes, as you just alluded to, people only know what the media is willing to show them. And if we're looking at somebody else's agenda, we're never going to truly understand that not only the importance, but the critical aspect of agriculture in this country.
Yes, one of our biggest challenges in getting our message out is obviously financial, or having a platform. I was also had the fortune to be in the NC Farm Families commercial that aired across the state, and some radio spots, whereas kind of to do that, and all of that money, all those funds was raised by growers like myself, farmers, when we chipped in to help get that commercial out there. And it's a huge expense, to run a 30-second commercial every year during the Super Bowl. You hear the outrageous numbers that
millions of dollars.
Yeah, and obviously that's the epitome of getting a commercial spot. So, but it's very expensive, so it's hard to have the platform. But different organizations like NC Farm Families is doing a great job. NC Farm Bureau, they're outstanding for helping us to get our message out. And obviously National Pork Board, which is the checkoff side of the pork industry, they help us. And different organizations, the Poultry Federation, they have their group as well. And lending institutions like Cape Fear Farm Credit, they try to help us get our message out, because when I first started kind of in the farming, which a lot of farmers kind of want, they just want to kind of do their work. They love the land, they love their animals, and kind of want to stay on the farm and just not be bothered.
Yeah, exactly.
And then what you see is since there's only 2% of us farming, we have to kind of educate the other 98% on what we do and why we do it. And we just happen to be fortunate enough to be in a country where we don't have to wake up every day and decide if we're going to get something to eat. We're so blessed or fortunate that we can decide how many calories it has, how is it raised, which region of the country is it raised. I feel like fresh strawberries today, and it's the middle of winter. You can get those. So things like that. So that's kind of why it's really important that today's farmer has to get that message out. Because if you look at 50 years ago, the farmer didn't have those type of offers. This was only what's the market going to bring in, the weather and all the other things. So now with social media and things of that nature, so you have to really be able to be in pace with all the communications that's out.
You were probably part of that, the marketing effort. I recall when the pork industry, and I guess it was the pork industry as a whole, moved to calling pork the other white meat to try to ensure that folks knew that it was as good for you as any other meat as far as a protein source.
Yes.
And with that said, James, one of the things that's interesting is that protein is critically important, not only to folks in the United States, but worldwide. the industry you're in, and more specifically, the pork industry that you represent, literally is the survivability of a lot of countries. If it were not for the farmers like you, for what Prestige Farms does and other manufacturers or growers, if you will, there would be a lot of countries that would be in serious starving situations right now.
Yes, protein is very vital. If you look at average countries, as their middle class expands, typically the consumption of protein goes up. As other countries become economically more viable, then you see protein tends to go up. Right now, last statistics I heard, 1 out of every 4 hogs is exported. So it's a huge revenue source for the country. And obviously on the local level here in our state and particularly this county, Sampson and Duplin County are some of the largest agricultural receipt counties in the country. If I go to the Midwest, you think of huge, massive farms with thousands of acres of row crops, then they know about Sampson and Duplin County out in the middle of Iowa. So that kind of shows the gravity of what is produced here in our county.
And Sampson and Duplin, when you look at those counties, there's some, I think, quandary as to who produces the most pork, Sampson or Duplin, but clearly between Duplin and Sampson County, they are, I would think, would be 2 of the largest pork producing areas in the country. Is that safe to say?
Yes, sir. And also turkeys. And sweet potatoes has been pretty big for both counties lately, and I think in the state, maybe #1 in sweet potatoes now, but they're vast. Sampson and Duplin are vast agricultural counties.
We're going to take our 3rd break. We'll be back in a moment, ladies and gentlemen. As we go to break, I want to leave you with a question and ask you to ponder this question. Am I dependent, and how important is agriculture to me? In essence, do I need agriculture to survive in my life? These are questions that is important. When we come back, I'm going to ask James Lamb that same question. We'll be back in a moment.
To get the most out of your electronic devices, you need a strong internet connection and a protected home Wi-Fi network. You need high-speed internet from Star. Star has the fastest, most affordable high-speed internet service available for all your devices. We have no long-term contracts or high-pressure sales. Our service speaks for itself, and switching is hassle-free. We take care of everything with free installation from a local company. High-speed internet from Star. Internet at the speed of life.
So when we went to break, I asked you a question to just give you something to ponder. And the question was built around the idea, do we need agriculture? In essence, what we're asking is, does most folks that you know, and likely if you're listening to this show simply because you're from an agricultural area in the state, you probably thought it was somewhat silly. But the question is, do we need agriculture? Where does our food come from? James Lamb is with us, and James is a North Carolina Farmer of the Year. James works as an environmental specialist at Prestige Farms. And also, you have your own nursery there with Prestige Farm. James, you've traveled all over the world and promoting pork and agriculture. Is that question relevant today? Should we be asking people in a larger capacity, do you understand how important ag is? Do you understand where your food comes from? We just take that for granted. And, we've talked about it off air. But should we be asking that more? And should we be seeking an answer if folks don't understand it, trying to explain that to them?
Yes, Mr. Simmons, I think that is a valid question, and we need to ask it more now than ever because, like I said earlier, now you're looking at 3 to 4 generations removed from the farm. You grew up on a tobacco farm. I grew up on a tobacco farm, and you used to go to any major city and you could see a doctor and they remember their granddad's farm in the summer or something like that. So being more generations removed from the farm, it's more critical that they do know if they need agriculture or not, and not only in food, but if you look at fiber or, like I said earlier, anything that's not 100% synthetic, a farmer had some hand in making the raw material. sometimes I like to start conversations. I've been on planes that I travel. I sat beside a lady from Chicago that does cosmetic surgery, and I told her I was in the pig business and she's in the cosmetic surgery business, and then I was able to talk to her about, they use pigs and skin grafts for burn patients, and that was something obviously in her field, her line of expertise. And then she said, yeah, and then that opened up a line of conversation. If you drove a vehicle with airbags in it, an airbag is made from pig. If you have insulin for diabetes, this comes from pig. Crayons and other materials. And that's just on the swine. Mm-hmm. If you look at the medications that are produced out of stuff that's extracted from plants and other fibers, then most of our medications are somehow the raw materials come from farming. Obviously, our clothing, our desks are made of wood. Timber is obviously it grows on the farm, and at the end of the day, I think one person said, toilet paper is made out of a form of maple. So he said, in essence, you couldn't wipe your butt without a farmer.
Good point. Good point. So I think going forward as in this conversation, and there's a lot of things I want to kind of restate a point here. There's a lot of things that we won't get to cover with your journey, but your association with Prestige Farms added great value to your connectivity nationally, and allowed you to be able now to reach out not only across the country. And one of the things that struck me in looking at your background, and I'm not going to read the quote here, but I could, but basically to sum it up, you made the point that it is so critical about your connectivity, who you connect with, who's the people that you know, who can you pick the phone up and call, who do you have a relationship with that if you need to know something, you can make that connection. Talk to us about that and what that's meant for you in your journey to this point.
Well, having connectivity, has really helped a lot. But primarily, like I was the lady that I met in the plane that does cosmetic surgery. There's things like that with people with other backgrounds and other occupations. It helps bridge that gap to get my message across, primarily because a lot of times we're preaching to the choir as farmers. So the things we take for granted, that people know where their food comes from and things like that, but it's because we live in a rural area, and you would be probably surprised at how many kids now drive by farms that really don't, in Sampson and Duplin counties, that don't necessarily know what is being done on the farm or how it works. So it's always good as you, in business or in life, to meet as many new people as you can from different backgrounds, that if you ever need a question answered, say when the Gulf oil spill was going on, I had a friend that lives in Louisiana, and I could call. I said, I see on the news all the devastation in the Gulf. Mm-hmm. How is it really down there on the ground? Mm-hmm. And you can see if it's as bad or not as good as you've heard. Had opportunity to go to the U.S.-Mexico border to see firsthand on what the Border Patrol has to go through. And agriculture, that's huge for us to go to a lab and see these people that are going through thousands of products just to make sure that we don't get a microscopic disease that you can't see with the naked eye, or a parasite or something that could be devastating to all our crops here. And it gives you a whole new appreciation for what they do. And then they got to meet me as a farmer on the ground level, and I felt good that I could personally be able to thank those people, because if they don't do their job, making sure that I don't get a foreign animal disease or something that could devastate my crops, mm-hmm. Then obviously it would benefit me or end up devastating potentially to my operation. So And then if you do see something, having that network of people that work in disease control, politicians, I try to make friends with as many of those as I can, because obviously they hand down legislation that I have to abide by as a citizen and as a farmer. So it's always good to, you can't ever have too many friends. My dad always kind of said, make friends wherever you go, because you never know where your car will break down.
That's a good point. And I want to kind of go to the next, not necessarily question, but observation. And this came from the North Carolina Agriculture Review, August Review. Your picture was in that Ag Review, and it comes out monthly, and of course it's put out by the North Carolina Department of Agriculture. And it was a picture of you and your wife on your farm. And where I'm going with this is, ag is still a family dynamic business for you. And if you look at the industry as a whole, it still holds true to that strong root. Your mother, Miss Thelma, still walks those nurseries with you. I found that fascinating. She's still out there. She still feels that not only need but desire to be involved as a family. Talk to us about that and how important that is.
Yeah, my mother, she loves agriculture too. I mean, at Black & Decker, she would take her vacations would be to help take off tobacco. We had stick barns, and a lot of times I say, Ma, you need to sit down or take a break or rest or something, and she said it keeps her going. So she has helps me with the hogs, and she has 6 cows. I call them pets, but she loves the cows. That's her thing, and she really loves it because I have all the expense. I let her get all the profit for the cows. But she loves to have a garden. She loves to help out with the pigs and animals, and she said, it keeps her moving, keeps her going, and she gets around better at 89 than a lot of people half her age. And everybody that goes to the farm, she's never met a stranger. She makes some really good strawberry jelly that everybody seems to love. And she's got my new serviceman, which happens to be like a family affair. My serviceman at the hog houses is Ben Presses, which is Mr. Bill's grandson. So he's kind of the 3rd generation of Presses in the family business. With Presses Farms, is family owned and operated, was one of the things I love. And then is helping out on a family farm like mine, where it's me, my mother, and my wife and 2 daughters. And they, in order to do the different activities that I've done that you've listed out, I had to have a good family structure and baseline back home. Obviously, if I'm traveling, that I need to know I have somebody there I can depend on to take care of things while I'm gone.
James, I want to just, we're coming up just a couple of minutes. We're going to have to go to close, but I want to just kind of make a statement about how important it is for folks not only to understand agriculture, but to understand the heart and souls of folks that's involved in agriculture. And to me, and of course I have I guess maybe an overbearing interest in that because I grew up in that field and I still live here, but the reality is it's kind of the solid core of one of the things that makes this country so great. Would you agree with that? Yes,
I always say, farmers are the salt of the earth. It's like I was talking about my family support system. I also had a support system of my neighbors. All my neighbors we grew up as family, as children together. We worked in the field together and played sports after work together. And when I'm traveling doing different things, particularly my neighbor Dennis, he grew up on the farm as well, and he's got a farm. If I'm out of town, Mom, she's always say, I'll call Dennis. And he'd be right there with no questions asked and help out. And if I have something that my neighbors need to borrow or vice versa, and then you have that structure there. Farmers are the salt of the earth,
Well, thank you for being with us today, and of course look forward anytime to having a conversation about anything related to ag here. We're looking at hopefully doing an ag show and get involved with that a little bit later. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been talking with James L. Lamb, also known as Cookie. Look forward to seeing you again next time, and may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host JW Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.